Okay, so we're recording now. And so you all see something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has a little recording in the upper left-hand corner.
Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is I am going to share the syllabus with you, and we'll just talk about it. And if you have any questions while we're going through it, just let me know. And then after we do that, I'll give you a chance to sort of introduce yourselves to everybody else in the class with a little more detail besides, where are you right now? And then I'll have at around 4 o'clock, Krista Burke, who's our career counselor. She's going to talk to you about resumes and cover letters. And so that's also one of the things that I asked you to sort of prepare for today is your resume. And if you have a cover letter as well. And that's going to be actually your first assignment. Okay. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do. You said you wanted us to look up like a peer-reviewed journal. Is that relevant for this class today?
Yes. Yeah. So also for today, I asked you to, thanks for asking that question, Patrick. I also asked you to get a primary peer-reviewed research article in some field or topic that's of interest to you. So we will talk about that as well. Okay. And if you don't know what a primary peer-reviewed research article is, that's okay, because that's one of the things that we're going to talk about here. So we'll get there. Any other questions? No? Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you and show you the syllabus. Okay. Let's see. Y'all see the syllabus?
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
I was actually able to access it on Canvas, so no, this is actually my first time seeing this one.
Okay, so you were or you were not able to access it?
I wasn't able to. Every time I clicked on the syllabus, it would just show like the course outline, and so I'm not sure if there was just if it's just my computer or something. But
did anyone else have that problem?
No, I was able to view it when I looked.
Yeah, I viewed it as well.
Okay. So anyway, Camille, I'm sure you'll get to the bottom of it.
For sure.
I can email it to Camille too if you need that.
Oh yeah, no, that'd be great. If I'll try and figure it out, but I'll let you know if I can't access it.
Okay. So let's see here. The course learning objectives, I kind of went through those already, but one of the things that you're going to do is you're going to analyze current research, and the current research that you're going to analyze is a primary peer-reviewed research article to start with. So let's talk about real quick what that is. What's a research article? Anyone can jump in, or I can call on you. Rowan, what's a research article?
Well, like an article that, well, like hopefully you want it to be like peer edited. It's just basically a bunch of information and facts, and then there could be like a study or like something like an experiment that they conducted, and then a bunch of facts and observations about that experiment. Like they could prove something.
Yeah. So that's great. You even took it a little bit further. So you even talked about the peer-reviewed part, right? So peer review just means that the article has been reviewed by other scientists in your field, and they are attesting to the validity of the paper that's been published. So most of the articles that you get from the library and from one of the library databases will be of the peer-reviewed variety. And that is important because it lends credibility to the work that's been done. And so the type of article that I want you to present on for the class is going to be the the peer-reviewed variety. Now, when I talk about primary, let's see. Spencer, what do I mean by primary peer-reviewed?
I'm honestly not too sure.
Okay, great. Anyone know what I mean by that? I know Janelle does.
Is it like a firsthand experiment that you yourself conducted?
Yeah. So like Olivia said, a primary article is one that has never been published before, and it's presenting brand new research, right? So primary peer review just means it's stuff that you've never seen before published, and it's been reviewed by other scientists in the field that you're in. Now, let me ask you this. Will a textbook typically have primary information in it? Justin, what do you think?
I don't think sometimes the author could do their own experiments and include it in the textbook, but oftentimes they refer it from other people.
Yeah, so textbook generally is not primary work, so we call it secondary work, and it's a summary of work that either the author did, and oftentimes the author did a lot of the work that goes into a textbook, because that usually means that they're going to have some expertise in that field, and then they summarize it into some type of book or a textbook. Okay, so primary peer reviewed is the type of article that you want. Okay, and you're going to analyze that. By analyzing that, you're going to summarize it and present it to the class. And usually, right, this type of work will have, the components that are associated with an article that deals with science and management. And that will be an introduction, a materials and methods section, results and discussion, and then a conclusion and a reference list, right? And the reference list is usually pretty long, right? Like usually more than 20 or so articles that the author cited that gives credibility to the work that they did. All right, any questions about that? All right, I will move onward and forward. So you are going to, this is learning objective 3, create and present several oral reports on research in your field. So that's kind of what I was just talking about. And then another key component of the class is the development of these professional practice skills. And so that goes along with developing a really good resume and cover letter, being able to research different job opportunities that might be of interest to you or internships, and also going through a mock interview. And the whole kind of one of the main goals of this class is to get you prepared, right, to get a job, right? Because I think that most of you probably, when you graduate from Cal Poly, you want to get a job, right? That's not a stretch for me to say that, is it?
Nope.
No, I don't think so. Right? Okay, so that's the point, right? Is get you ready to find a career that's meaningful. And you can see the activities that you're going to do. The main prerequisite is a good attitude. There is another official prerequisite, but I don't remember what it is. When we talk about the office hours, I will have a live synchronous, well, live-ish, but a synchronous office hour, and the website or the Zoom meeting location is posted on Canvas. So you can just go to that. It'll put you in a waiting room, and then I'll pull you into the office hour when I'm done speaking with whoever I'm speaking with, okay? If that time for an office hour doesn't work for you and you'd like to set up another one, just let me know. You can email me, right? Or you can call my office phone, and I think my office phone is listed up here as well. Yeah. So all the stuff that I show in class, including a recording of these lectures, I'll post on Canvas. I'll post a link to it, but it'll all be on YouTube. And then all the materials associated with the class, the assignments, the slides that I present, all that stuff will be on Canvas. Okay. So in terms of grading, the main thing is you are going to be assessed based upon your completion of course assignments and your presentations, and the mock interview that you do, and I just expect that you do good work, good and professional work that is at a high level. And you'll turn in 2 resumes and 2 cover letters. The first resume and cover letter is going to be due next week. And I'll talk about what that assignment will look like in more detail. You want to talk about it now? Yeah, let's talk about it now. Okay. Let me hold it up. Oh, I could have just had it up for you. Sorry. I'm gonna go back to sharing this. And then I'll show you the assignment. Okay, do you see that? Resume and cover letter assignment?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want you to find a job or an internship or a graduate program that has certain things that are listed with it in terms of desired skills. All right, so you can use monster.com, Mustang Jobs, whatever job searching database you want to use, and find a job that you would like to get. Or find a job if you're going to be graduating soon that you are maybe even planning to apply for. And that is the job that you are going to tailor your resume and your cover letter to. Okay? So you can see then that you are going to write a cover letter and a resume. The cover letter should have 3 paragraphs. Krista Burke's going to talk to you in more detail about this at around 4 o'clock. And it sort of goes through what the 3 paragraphs should have in it. And then your resume, right, should have some components associated with it as well. And Krista Burke is going to talk to you in more detail about that stuff. Your resume and cover letter should have the same header, and the header is usually your name and some contact information for you. Okay. And then you are going to turn in these materials as one PDF file. And for the first thing that you're going to turn in, you'll have your cover letter first, your resume second, and your downloaded job description, and that'll be as a PDF. Okay, so that'll be due 1 week from today at 3 o'clock on Canvas. Okay, and then you're going to do that again after you get some feedback from me and one of your peers. And so you'll revise your first draft of your resume and your first draft of your cover letter, and then resubmit all that stuff. Okay? And the way that I'm going to evaluate what you turn in is with this rubric. So you can get an idea of the kind of things that I'm looking for, right? And how I will assess how well you've done it. And then I'll also give you this rubric back. All right, so here's the cover letter rubric. Cover letter, the first draft is worth 20 points. The resume rubric looks somewhat similar, right? So formatting's kind of important because you want to make sure it looks good. And then of course the content's pretty critical. Well, content is essentially critical, right? So each draft of your resume and cover letter is worth 20 points, okay? If somehow, and I think you could do this, if you earn 20 out of 20 points on your resume and on your cover letter, or just one and not the other, on the first draft that you turn in, you don't need to turn in the second draft. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Any questions about that? Seeing none, let us proceed. Yeah, do you have a question, Emma?
Yeah, so we're making 2 resumes and 2 cover letters due on Monday?
No. Thank you for asking that question.
Okay.
So you're gonna do your resume and cover letter assignment twice. The first draft is due next Monday, which should be the 13th, 3 o'clock. I'm gonna evaluate it and get it back to you, and then you'll have a chance to revise it and resubmit it. For the second submission, I've set it up so you can get, actually, I think it might be for the first submission, but I can't remember. you're going to have the opportunity to have a peer review of it done. So you can get some feedback from one of your peers. And after you've gotten all that feedback, you're going to revise it based upon that and then resubmit a final draft. And that'll be due in like 3 weeks or so. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you for asking. All right. Let's see here. Going back to the syllabus now. The textbook that we're going to use is not really a textbook. It's this book right here. Is it backwards for you?
No, that's correct. Yeah, you're good.
That's really neat because it's backwards for me when I'm looking at myself. But it's Designing Your Life. This is a New York Times bestseller, and it's really a helpful book in terms of figuring out the type of job that you like to do, type of career that you'd like to have, and if you're in the future kind of in a job or in a career that you don't like, it gives you some tips and suggestions for how to get out of it. And so there's some assignments associated with the book that are going to help you kind of move towards a career that might be of interest to you, and also move towards the Odyssey plan that you're going to present to all of us during finals week. Okay? Any questions? No? All right, grade scale is what you see there. We have 400 points. If you are 90% or above, then you're in an A. I do plus and minus gradings, plus and minus grading. And that's about it. Any questions about the grading system or how I will determine your grades? No, seeing none, I will proceed then. So participation and attendance and punctuality, I just expect you to be here when we meet, and I expect you to be participating also. Okay? Okay. The diversity and inclusion statement is one that comes from Cal Poly, and the main thing, I think, to summarize this is we just expect to have a positive and open environment in this class, and we want to respect everyone that's in our class and also the environment that you're in. Okay. And here's just a clarification about multitasking. I know that as we're teaching virtually and online, this is going to be a challenge, right? I think for all of you in your classes. But here's some research that I've been doing that suggests that no one can multitask. And I'll be honest with you. So I've been sitting in on a lot of Zoom meetings over the last 3 weeks, right? Since everything kind of changed in our world related to the coronavirus. And I will admit to you that in the meetings, and I'm not trying to pointing fingers at anyone, but I'll be honest with you, in the meetings where I've noticed myself like blacking out my screen so you can't see me, so that I can sort of do other stuff while the meeting's going on. Those are the meetings that I don't get anything out of, really, because it's difficult for me to focus on sending emails, which is usually what I'm doing, and listening to the topics that are being covered. So I would encourage you in this class and any of the classes that you're in, you know, that are meeting this way or other ways, that while you're in class, you're focusing on the material that's being covered in class. Because if you're doing other stuff, it's going to be hard for you. I think it's hard for me. And there's really good research out of Stanford and other places that suggests that people cannot multitask well, and the comprehension and assimilation of really anything is greatly diminished by doing so. Okay, so you can take a look at that link there. The text I already showed you, so you can get it as an ebook for pretty cheap. Did anyone ask the bookstore to mail it to them? No. All right. Yeah, ebook's probably the fastest way to get it. But it's a great book. Really. I strongly encourage you to, well, all the assignments out of the book, you need the book to sort of help you figure out how to do it. Because I'm not going to cover the book in great detail. I'm just going to expect you to go through it and be able to get the information that you need from the book to do the assignments. I will, from time to time, maybe talk about that, and you can certainly ask questions about it. But I'm expecting the book to act as its own guide for you as we move along. But it's helpful because the book really is applied to you and what you want to do, right, with your career after Cal Poly and even during your time at Cal Poly. So here is sort of our seminar schedule. You can see for the first 3 weeks, like I said, we're going to be talking about a couple of the first assignments, research, resumes, cover letters, and then next week, Chris is going to talk about interviewing, and I'm going to talk to you about doing research. The 20th, we'll talk about oral presentations, and then right after that, we'll jump into you giving oral presentations. I've posted a schedule for those oral presentations on PolyLearn, as well as the mock interview. A couple of you, I think, added recently, and so I need to add your names to that, and I will do that. And then we have one day where we're going to talk about interviewing and also the oral presentations that you gave, and talk about the Odyssey plan, which is the final thing that we're going to do in this class. And then we jump into mock interviews, and then we got Memorial Day holiday in there, and then final exam week. So we don't have a lot of time, right, to meet for one, and then we don't have a lot of time really to cover the content of the class. So it's just important that you kind of keep up with the things that are happening, and that if you do have questions about anything that we cover in the class, that you make sure that those questions are answered during office hours or in class or via email. All right? Questions? So here's where you can see when all the assignments are due. So you can see, actually, I didn't point this out, but the book reading. Here is what you should be reading in the book for this week, the introduction in chapter 1. And then, next week, chapter 2, and so forth. So generally, there's just one chapter a week. The chapters are 15 to 20 pages, except these chapters towards the end of the class, those ones are really short. So that's why I grouped those together. And then you can see that on April 10th, right, which is towards the end of, when is that going to be actually? That's going to be the end of this week. From chapter 1, you need to fill out and turn in the Love Play Work Health worksheet on PolyLearn, okay? And in order to be able to do that, you just need to read the introduction in chapter 1. Okay? Any questions about that? No? Okay. So let's do this. Stop sharing for a minute, and then I'm going to show you some slides from the class real quick. And I'm just going to show you a couple of these slides, and then I'm going to give you all the opportunity to introduce yourselves to all of us here in class using this prompt here. Oh, that's the wrong one. Let's see here. Okay. So, well, let me just introduce me and my family to you. So this is my wife and my daughter Maggie and my other daughter Beatrice. They're twins. People always ask us who's older. And my wife has a pet peeve about that. She doesn't like that for some reason. But anyway, I'll tell you, Beatrice is older, but they were both born in the same minute. So if you can imagine what that was like in the operating room when they were born, it was pretty crazy that day, but awesome too. So here is kind of the prompts that I would like you to use as you introduce yourself to everybody else in the class. Okay, you don't need to say where you are now because we already know that. But if you would talk about what field of environmental science you're in, or you're interested in, what kind of job you want when you graduate, briefly like what your hope is to be doing in 10 years from now. If you look at yourself, you know, you're probably like all between 20 and somewhere around 20, right? So if you can project, what is your 30-year-old self doing, right? And think about it in terms of like what you'd really love to do. Like if you could think about what you really love to do when you're 30, right? What would that be? And maybe it has nothing to do with what you're doing now, right? Maybe, I don't know, you want to be a professional surfer, right? Say that, okay? And then you can, if you would, you can tell us something interesting, unique, or important about you, all right? And everyone take like, you know, a couple minutes, 1 or 2 minutes, and I'll just call you out to ask you to go when it's time. Okay, so you got that down kind of? I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can all see each other a little bit better. So what field of environmental science or management you're interested in, what kind of job you want, where are you going to be in 30 years, or it's not 30 years, where are you going to be in 10 years, and something interesting, important, or unique about you. And then I'll use the same prompts to introduce myself to you when we're done. Okay, got it? All right. So why don't we start with, let's see. Okay, why don't we start with Max?
Okay, I'm in ENVM, so Environmental Management and Protection, and I had a job lined up for summer, being an environmental educator for kids and doing a summer camp with kids, but I don't know what the plan is right now for that. But for seeing myself in 10 years, hopefully I have a job doing something to do with environmental sciences, but overall just being able to take care of my family, my parents, maybe start a family, but who knows. And see, something unique. I'm starting a garden in the backyard right now for my parents because I don't really have anything to do. So I thought that'd be a fun project to do over spring break and over summer. So yeah.
Great. Josh?
Hello, I'm Josh. I'm environmental earth and soil science. A job I would like to pursue is assessing soils after wildfires. In 10 years, I see myself hopefully having a family and kids and a steady job. And something interesting about me is I work on the organic farm on campus.
How about you? Thank you, Josh. How about you, Liam? Liam, you're muted.
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Got it. Yeah.
Okay. I'm currently in SLO. My name's Liam. I'm environmental earth and soil sciences with a concentration in geology. I'm currently working for a geotechnical company, working as a lab technician, testing soil, which is pretty fun. I'm just like trying to get different jobs to see what I like the most. What do I hope to be doing in 10 years? I hope that I can become a famous musician and play music for the rest of my life, because that's what I genuinely really love. And then interesting, unique about myself, I'm in a band in SLO. I was gonna play in Shebang this year, but then it got canceled. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How about you, Patrick?
All right. So field that I'm interested in is, it's like kind of two. that are pretty much opposites. It's like fire prevention and like wildlife restoration. And also I really like the idea of like water management and like the whole physics aspect of that, I think is cool. The ideal job for me would probably be a fire chief, just because I like cannot sit for longer than 2 hours without like, I don't know, I'm kind of dying during this quarantine, so I need a job that's active. In 30 years, I hope that I have a steady job that I'm happy with and I'm living near the snow, because like I'm an avid skier and snowboarder. And that's it for me.
Nice. So how about something interesting, important, unique?
Something unique to me, probably very unique to this class too, is I'm currently an electrical engineer and I'm switching to environmental management. So it's a very big switch.
All right, Maddie.
I'm in earth and soil science, but I'm also minoring in biotech. So for a job, I want to go kind of into research, but not really sure for what specifically. In 10 years, I want to have a steady job, but also have flexibility to kind of like have enough of that work-play balance that was kind of mentioned earlier, and have like time to explore other interests. And then the fun fact, I just learned how to ride a bike this break.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. Congratulations.
Yeah. Better late than never.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. How about you, Camille?
All right, so I am in environmental earth and soil sciences. The career I would ideally want is probably something that has to do with soil mechanics, so like compaction testing and concrete testing, something kind of construction wise. In 10 years, I would hopefully like to have a master's degree and a family of my own, and hopefully be a project manager of a geotechnical firm or some sort of construction company. And then a unique thing about me, in high school, I actually used to be an automotive mechanic at an off-road racing vehicle company where I helped create transaxles and gearboxes for like dune buggies and off-road racing vehicles. So, yeah.
Cool. Thank you. ISN?
Hi, my name is Jocelyn. I'm EESS with a concentration in geology. My dream job would be studying interplanetary geology, so like kind of like the Martian soil would be pretty cool. In 10 years, I kind of see myself doing research, maybe having a PhD or a master's at the least, doing research. Something interesting about me would probably be I play trumpet. That's yeah, that's my passion. So love that.
Awesome. Are you in a band?
Sort of. We kind of go busking some places. So yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Emma, how about you?
I'm environmental earth and soil science, and I'm thinking about a hydrology concentration. A field that I want to go into, like ideal job, would be either something to do with like water or like soil restoration. In 10 years, I see myself having a job and a family, and hopefully living somewhere by the beach. And then an interest, like a fun fact, is that I make my own yogurt.
Awesome. Thank you. And Nicole?
Hi, I'm Nicole, and I am also environmental earth and soil science. I'm kind of doing a minor in bio, so I've been taking a lot of just biology related, like approved electives. So in terms of just like job, I'm kind of interested in like the plant biology, genetic side of, so maybe like vineyard management is something that I've thought about. I'm also interested in like the wine industry, where I'd be hopefully in 10 years as a master's, might do like international business for the wine, like the industry aspect of that, debating that right now. And then also living in a place where I can go skiing as well, hopefully in the mountains, but also having a job that requires like some traveling. Something interesting about me, I grew up partially in Argentina, so that's kind of where I got my influence on just being around vineyards and some little wineries. So yeah.
Great, thank you. And Justin.
Hi, my name's Justin. I'm an environmental earth and soil science major, and I'm working towards a geology and hydrology concentration. And I'd say one of the fields I'm interested in is environmental justice, merging together public health and safety with environment. And 10 years from now, I hope to work with the United Nations and going back to get my master's in international relations. And something I really enjoy is running.
Great, thank you. And Rowan.
Sorry, I was muted. I'm Rowan. Something that, I'm in environmental earth and soil science, and I hope that I become a soil scientist. So I want to, but specifically in vineyards. So I want to analyze the soil that's in the vineyards, because I think that's super crucial for vineyards. And in 10 years, I hate thinking about the future, because the future never plans out the way you want it, but I hope to still have a lot of energy and be healthy and not need as much caffeine. I try not to drink as much caffeine, but yeah, and have be kind of independent and have my own place. And then the last one was the fun fact or something. Okay, this is gonna be so dumb, but I made a TikTok and in one day it got 37,000 views, but then TikTok removed it, but it's whatever, it's fine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, thank you. Siobhan, how about you?
Hi, I'm EESS, and a field that I'm interested in is the pollution aspect, whether in the ocean or in the atmosphere. And in 10 years, I hope to do something with that and get a master's and try to mitigate it and reduce the emissions and the impact that it has. An interesting thing, I'm so bored inside, so I'm starting to run, and I hate running, so that's kind of fun. Kind of sucks, but.
Great, thank you. And Max.
Hi, I'm Max, and I'm ESS. The field I'm interested in is probably GIS or field work. I really like going outside too, especially now, even though I can't. An ideal job would probably be somewhere I can work in the field and in an office, like a little bit of both. And in 10 years, hopefully I would be working and probably, I don't know, starting a family or something. And a fun fact about me is that recently I've started my family has a vegetable garden in the backyard, and I started a compost pile for them so they could get some good compost on their soil.
Awesome. Thanks, Max. Olivia, how about you?
I'm Olivia. I'm EESS as well, but I have a minor in anthropology and geography, which is kind of what I'm more interested in, I guess. I kind of want to combine them and do archaeology. That would be ideal for me. And then travel around for the next 5 or so years, and then probably start family time then and try to settle down. And that's kind of where I see myself in 10 years, having traveled a lot and then be able to stay more local and do research or write papers on what I had done. And then, what am I forgetting? Oh, a fun fact. I've been to Iceland twice, which is kind of what got me started on wanting to travel more and see different parts of the world. So that's it.
Great. And Brianna, how about you? Thanks, Olivia.
Hello, I go by Bree. I'm an environmental earth and soil science major as well. There's a lot of us. I feel like the whole major is in this one room because I don't meet a lot. So my dream job is to be a park ranger, but ideally I don't think that would work because I'm in LA. My family's from LA and I'd miss them a lot. So I honestly don't know what I want to do as a job. I just know I want to be outside. I'm really interested in wildlife conservation, but if I could tie in my major somehow with that, that would kind of work, I guess. 10 years from now, I hope I have a job. I mean, that's not an option. I guess I am going to have a job. I just hope I'm doing what I love, being outside, making money. Having a family, of course. I think that's the time I should start settling down. Something important, unique, or something, I don't know, interesting, I guess. I am part of a Mexican folk dancing club on campus, Folklorico. So yeah, check us out. Once we go back to school, go to the performances.
Great. Thanks, Bree. Natalie, how about you? You're muted.
Dang. Okay. Hi, I'm Natalie. Wait, can you guys hear me now?
Uh-huh.
Okay. I'm an ENVM major. I currently have an internship set up for the summer in like agriculture, technology, science at this cool company. I hope I can still be able to do it, but and then where do I hope to be in 10 years? I have no idea. Probably like on a greenhouse or something. That'd be pretty cool. And then something interesting about me, I have a lot of houseplants, as you guys can probably tell. And I'm currently I planted carrots and beets and they're sprouting and I'm super stoked.
Thank you. And Isabella.
Hello, my major is environmental earth and soil science with a geology concentration. I'm not really sure what kind of job I want to go into yet. I know I want it to be in the field, and I know like the part of geology. I like igneous rocks, and so maybe I want to be like a volcanologist or something like that. That would be really cool. In 10 years, I hope to have a job and maybe even start a family, and then something interesting. I don't know, I'm not a very interesting person. I like to hammock and hike and just get outside as much as possible. And I don't get to with the quarantine as much as I want to, but yeah.
Thank you very much. Janelle, how about you?
I'm Janelle. I am an earth and soil science major. I'm currently, well, this is going to be my last quarter, so now I'm kind of just like focusing on getting through this and graduating. I currently work in the NRES labs and will continue to be working throughout this time. So I'm pretty happy about that I'll still be able to get to do some research. Something interesting about me, I was in soil judging and unfortunately will not be able to get to go to Ohio because it is now canceled, but that's okay. And in 10 years, I really hope to be doing environmental education for children. That's what I really like working with children, so I think that would be really interesting and a good way to combine both environmental science and education.
Great. And Emily.
I'm in environmental earth and soil science, and I'm interested in environmental consulting. And so I'd hopefully get a job being a hydrologist at a consulting firm. And something interesting is now that I'm home, I normally I train dogs at a local animal shelter, but it's currently closed, so I can't do that.
All right, thank you. And Caitlin.
I'm an environmental earth and soil science major. I'm still debating between geology and hydrology for my concentration. My ideal job, I would definitely like to have a good balance of field work and like indoor type thing. In 10 years, I'd like to have a stable job, start settling down and have a family, and just like be somewhere nice with like nice outdoors. Something unique about me is I currently work at the Hoover Herbarium.
Great. Caitlin, thank you. And Krista just joined us, and Krista Burke is the career counselor for cafes. And so here's the prompts, Krista. They're, what field of science are you interested in? What kind of job do you want to do? Where do you envision yourself being in 10 years? And what's something interesting, important, or unique about you?
Oh, those are good prompts. Field of science. Well, my background is actually in liberal arts, but I did really love environmental science. And then let's see, what careers interest me. Well, currently I am the career counselor, and I love this job. It's amazing. I get to hear about all of your career interests, and every time I meet with one of you and hear a new interest, I think that sounds amazing. And I want to do it. So I'll have to look into being a volcanologist after this. I think in 10 years, I am still undecided where I want to be. I have recently actually been really interested in like ag tourism. So interested to see where life takes me. And something interesting or important, I also just planted some carrots in the garden. I need all of your soil knowledge to tell me if my soil is appropriate or not, but I had a ton of worms, so that was, I think, a good sign. I also had a mushroom fungi growing on my garden bed, and I was really concerned, and I Googled it, and it said it was actually a really good sign. So hopefully I Googled the right mold or the right fungus, and it is actually good.
Great. Thanks, Krista.
Yeah.
Jacob, how about you?
Can you see me?
We can.
I'm environmental earth and soil science. I'm currently working as an on-call planner for a consulting firm, and it's pretty boring. So I'm like looking to switch jobs and hopefully go into like some field surveys, maybe in like Hawaii or like some under-surveyed areas. In 10 years, I'd love to be just like working on the coast somewhere, whether it be environmental or not. And I surf. That's my interesting fact.
Nice. Thanks, Jacob. Spencer, how about you?
Hi, I'm Spencer. I'm environmental earth and soil science major working towards a hydrology concentration. An ideal job probably be something to do with a water company or like a local county job, hopefully in California. In 10 years, I would like to probably travel different countries testing water quality or like pollutants in rivers or streams or etc. And something unique, or I guess fun fact, is I've been playing tennis for the past 8 years.
Great. Thanks, Spencer. And Catherine.
Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm ENVM, and I'd like to do something with wildlife management or conservation. In 10 years, I don't really know what exactly I want to be doing, but hopefully have a stable job but one that doesn't like control my life. A fun fact about me is, I don't know, I really like traveling. I want to go to all 7 continents and 50 states. I've already been to 40 states, so getting kind of close there. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Catherine. So I'll use the same prompts. So let's see. I kind of like Krista am doing the job that is my dream job, really. I really enjoy being a professor and working at Cal Poly and having the opportunity to work with people like you and getting to learn about the things that you want to do and hopefully supporting you in the goals that you have for yourselves. That gives me a lot of joy. And I am a soil chemist, and soil chemistry is just awesome, you know? So that's the field that I like the most. In 10 years, that's kind of daunting for me to think about 10 years from now. In 10 years from now, I'm going to be almost 60. And that seems old to me. So I envision doing the same thing. I hope that by that time, I'll know how to speak Spanish. That's one of the goals that I have. That I will see my twin daughters graduate from college, because they should be seniors in college at that time. So that would be awesome. And I too would like to visit all 50 states, which I think is pretty doable. I've been to 49 now. And let's see. And I would like to live in Spain too. That's a goal. Or live in a Spanish-speaking country where I can learn how to speak Spanish and communicate well. And let's see. So something interesting about me is when I was 10, I won the Maury Boogie Bodyboard Championship at Oak Street Beach in Laguna Beach. And I have a trophy to prove it. And let's see, what else? And probably the most important thing about me is that I'm a Christian. And so what that means is that I'm charged to love God and love people. And so that's, I think, a good goal to have. So thank you all for sharing the things that you shared. It certainly helped me get to know you all better, and I really appreciate it. So let's see, we got Krista here, but what I'm going to suggest that we do is we just take like, 4 or 5 minute break. You can get something to drink, or if you need to use the restroom or whatever, and then we'll come back and start up again. My watch says it's like 4:07, so we'll start up again at like 4:12. 4:12. Okay. Natalie, I like that picture.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A split second. I'm trying to figure out this green screen thing, and it's not loving my computer software.
Chip, what's the last state you haven't been to?
Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Actually, Alaska and Michigan are hard states to get to. So Michigan, we went to last summer. And that was like after probably like 5 trips that we've taken around the country.
Wow.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll get to Alaska soon. And then we are scheduled to live in Spain next school year. So I don't know if that's going to happen or not now.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because I got approved for a sabbatical to go there.
Oh my gosh. How old are your daughters?
They're 11.
Okay.
Yeah.
How fun.
Yeah. So hopefully that'll work out.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't, then I'll try and do it the following year.
There you go.
Yes. Oh, there you are. You're on my screen. Your picture is moving around. So I'm trying to figure out where you are. Yeah. And did you get a spring break or no?
No. We worked through it, which was actually good because we got to familiarize ourselves with some different technologies, but still feel like we'll have to learn by doing. So
Yep, me too.
yeah, it's going
Me
good
too.
so far.
Yeah, but this has been pretty fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to like be able to do this. You know,
I know.
10 years ago, if we had the same issue happen, like there's no way we could do this.
Yeah,
Right.
seriously.
Yeah, and even 5 years ago, it would have been a challenge.
Yeah. Were you on the Cafes Town Hall where Jared was saying Zoom before this, their highest user was like 10 million, and now there's like 200 million every day or something.
Yes. Yeah, that is pretty incredible.
So wild.
Yeah, it is wild. And you're working from home?
Yes, working from home. So we've been off campus since the 13th.
Wow, that's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's going all right so far. I'm just grateful to have space, and when it's nice out, I set up a nice little area out in the backyard. So that's been nice.
It's nice to have a job, huh?
Yes, absolutely. So grateful for all those things.
Let's see. So Krista, you have the ability to share your screen with us. And
Awesome.
if you don't, let me know. But for all the students in the class, Krista's been working with this class for several years, and the advice that she brings is super helpful, and the resources that she's going to show you, I think you'll find very helpful. She sent me a bunch of stuff this morning, and I've posted all of that on Canvas, so you can access that. And then pretty much everything I think that she is going to share with you today, except for just her mind, right? Because you can't take her mind with you, but is on their website, on the Career Services website. Okay, so I will give it to you, Krista.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks for having me. I'm going to try to make this still as interactive as possible, hopefully. So if you do have a question, feel free to raise your hand in the chat, and I'll try to bounce over there and see what questions are coming up. All right. And can you all see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Does it look like a resume presentation?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right. So let's see, there we go. So this is kind of how I have it structured. We'll go over the format and then talk more about bullet points, and then finally end with some additional materials, mostly your cover letter. And I just realized once I start sharing my screen, I can't see if your hand is raised.
I'll let you know.
Okay, great. All righty. So let's dive in. I guess, do people have their resumes in front of them? Close to them?
I can pull it up on my computer as a separate screen or tab.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I asked all of them to have a resume accessible, either one that their most recent one or one that they had before. So
Okay.
they all should have a resume. And I don't know if any of them have a cover letter, but I suggested that too.
Awesome. Okay, great. Only because I think this will be way more helpful if you can make notes on your own resume. Otherwise, it all sounds really good, and then when you go to edit it, everything is forgotten. But I guess this is recorded, so that solves that. So formatting, typically you want to keep your resume onto one page. And really the reason for this is because you want an employer to see your most compelling experience within the time that they're going to dedicate to reading your resume. And so the standard time an employer is going to give to reading your resume is between 7 and 10 seconds. So you really want to captivate their attention in that first 7 seconds to hopefully capture them in and continue reading. And so a lot of times that's helpful if it's on one page and it seems like it's something that the employer can get through. The exception to that, and the exception to a couple of different things throughout this presentation, is federal resumes. So if you are applying to any federal positions through USA Jobs, know that that resume is going to look a little bit different. And I'm always happy to work with you individually on that, or there's also resources I can share with you. Half-inch margins is a really good way to just save some space. So as you get further along in your education, you have all those great class projects. Some of you might have internships, different volunteering, some travels that I heard you all say. All of that is going to be tough to fit onto one page. So half-inch margins is kind of our way to be able to make some more space for ourselves. And then really coming back to that 7 to 10 seconds, try to be as consistent and neat as possible. And we'll talk a little bit later about using some headers that are good ways to capture the employer's attention. You don't need personal pronouns, so if you have full and complete sentences on your resume, you can take those off, and we'll talk more about bullet points and how to format those later on as well. 10.5 to 12 point font and no errors. And that's a big one. I always say it's kind of a miracle how employers can just hone in on the one tiny mistake on your resume, even if you've read it 19 times. And so it's a great reason to get other people to take a look at your resume. Any questions about format? Looking good?
Nope, you're good.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. So at the top of your resume should be your name and contact information. What I like to address here is your address. If you are hoping to get an internship or a job back home or somewhere you have another address, you can use that strategically to put that location at the top of your resume. Every once in a while, it can be a deterrent for an employer to feel like they're going to have to pay for relocation. So if you can kind of demonstrate at the beginning, I have an address there, that can be a strategic way to put a physical address at the top. Otherwise, it is optional. You don't have to put a physical address at the top. Another optional thing is an objective. Really, the purpose of the objective is to demonstrate to the employer that you have taken the time to tailor your resume and your materials to them specifically. So if you do have an objective on there, it really should be straightforward, just the position title and the company name. And then beyond that, I still like to keep it optional because really it's your use of space. If you feel like you can use that line or that 2 lines once you add in the spaces for something more valuable, then it's not necessary to have an objective on there. Certain circumstances like a career fair, or if you're going and meeting employers with a bunch of other people, it can help to help your resume stick out if you know that they're receiving a lot of resumes at once.
Can I throw something in?
Yeah, please.
So I totally agree with Krista. However, for our class purposes, I do want you to have an objective. And the reason for that is because you are all tailoring your resume and cover letter to a specific job, right? So you're going to search and find a job that's of interest to you. And so I do think it's important for you to sort of have a focus going in that I want some type of position with the name of that specific position at the entity that you're applying to. So it should be really that specific. In the future, right, when you're going to career fairs or whatever, it's probably not a good idea to have a very specific objective like that. But for the purposes of our class, I think it's important just to get in the habit of like just saying to yourself, I'm going to have a bunch of different resumes. And the resume that I'm creating for this class is specifically related to this thing.
Awesome. Thank you for adding that. And I think that too emphasizes a point I didn't make, which is that your resume should be tailored to at least a specific industry. So if you are interested in hydrology, that's going to be a different resume than someone who's interested in more the geology aspect of things, or social science, or soil science. Awesome. Education, as you kind of move down, education should be still at the top of your resume. A lot of times, some examples you see might have it toward the bottom. Once you have 5 or so years outside of graduation, then you can move your education down to the bottom. But for now, a lot of times employers just want to see what is your degree in and when are you graduating, and then kind of get to the rest of it. So that's an easy way to just help them scan through. Include any minors, and then definitely include any study abroad. You see on this example, it has GPA. Know that that's completely optional. Rarely is an employer ever going to think poorly if your GPA is not on there. So keep that in mind. Definitely have your degree completion date or your grad term on there, and then spell out California Polytechnic State University, San Luis Obispo, up at the top. And then if you want to refer to that later on in your resume, you can include just Cal Poly SLO in parentheses after that to demonstrate that. And then in this example, you see relevant coursework up here at the top. Know that you can move this around depending on how you want your resume to be read. You can move it down to the bottom if you want to just get straight into your experience. It's totally up to you. What I would say is this list of relevant courses is probably too long once you get into your 3rd or 4th year. You really want to start focusing on what exactly, what courses are definitely going to be something you talk about in an interview. So I would say this list is appropriate if you're in your 1st or 2nd year and trying to kind of fill up that entire page. But after that, once you have more experience, or you can talk more about projects that you did in those upper division classes, then you shouldn't have this much space dedicated to coursework. Questions about that top portion?
I don't see any.
Looking good. Okay. Awesome. Oops. Sweet. So now the bulk of your resume is really going to be your experience section. And what I like to highlight from the beginning is that you do not have to separate your experience by paid versus unpaid. So the most common thing I see is work experience and then other experience. And what I really want to encourage you to do is thinking about ways to categorize your experience so that it's the most relevant experience at the top, and then any other more transferable experience underneath that. And so this kind of factors into that whole, you want it to be tailored to a specific position or a specific industry, because you might move things around based on the positions that you're applying to. And so you'll see here, this one is separated by related projects and work experience. You could do anything like environmental science experience. You could do environmental education experience if you're interested in that. Hydrology and GIS experience. However you want to capture your experience, you can capture it. And then within each section, you're going to go in reverse chronological order. And so it's kind of a way to get around if, say, last summer you did something that was really relevant and you want to highlight that, but right now you're working part-time. Well, I suppose you're not working part-time at Jamba Juice right now, but if you had a part-time job that wasn't as relevant, but it was more current, you want that to fall below whatever's kind of going to be more captivating to the employer. So that's a really good way to kind of work around that reverse chronological order within each section.
Krista, are you going to talk about formatting, or can I jump in and say something about that?
Jump in, yeah.
Okay. And was there another question? No. Okay. So one thing that Krista said earlier, which is really critical, you want your resume to look good, right? And if it doesn't look good, it's not going to be considered. So as you look at this, right, you might think, well, that kind of looks boring. And I can see that, but it also looks very organized, and it's easy to sort of spot and see what the different headings are and then how each of those headings is fleshed out. So kind of think about that as you're preparing your own resume. Notice that all of them have like a title associated with it that stands out, and then where that thing happened. And then beyond that, the date or the time that happened, and that all those dates are lined up, right? So they're not just sort of tabbed over a certain number of tabs and then just sort of not lined up at all. They're all very lined up and very easy just to spot and look on the right side of the page and say, okay, that's when all those things happen there. And I know that Krista is going to talk to you about those different bullet points, but pay attention to what it looks like, because that's a really critical piece.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. And I think those things a lot of times can be really subtle. So as you're creating a resume, it doesn't feel super important. And then when you look at the finished product, it makes a really big difference to an employer. So thank you for adding those points. And you can also see on this resume, if it was a project that you did over a quarter, you can put the quarter or the season in there, so you're not just doing like a 10-week time frame. Okay. Yeah, so make sure to include your title, the employer, location, and dates. And again, if you have a project, the title can just be the project title, and the employer can be your class name. And then one of the things I really encourage you to do, because you're going to have a specific job description for this class, and then hopefully moving forward, you'll have those job descriptions that you're looking at. Take a look really closely at each of the job responsibilities, each of the duties, each of the qualifications, and then see where your experience aligns with that job description. And think of the job description as a rubric, and your resume as kind of the checklist, right? So your resume should be checking off as many of those items as possible that's listed on the job description. One of the biggest things I hear is, oh, well, I have this project, but I'll just tell them more about it in the interview. And I get nervous because you don't know if you're going to get an interview without sharing all of your experiences. So be as kind of aligned as you can, and make sure that you're telling them about anything that you know that you've done that lines up with what they're looking for. Any questions there?
I don't see any.
Okay, awesome. So that's the experience section. Let me see, I clicked down on that. Okay, and then underneath experience is really going to be everything else. And I call that everything else because it's going to totally depend on what else you have to tell the employer about. It can be a community campus involvement, right? So it can include clubs or volunteering. It can be skills and tools, especially if you are going into an industry that is going to require more familiarity with specific software. You want to demonstrate that proficiency. Any involvement, anything like that. Something to keep in mind, don't feel like, in this example, there's Association of Environmental Professionals. If you were super active in that club, or if you have a ton of experience because of that involvement, feel free to include that in your experience section. So just restating, you don't have to keep things in certain places. If it is super relevant, move it closer to the top so that employer is seeing it right away. All right. So that's kind of the general overview of the format at a glance, what your resume should look like. And we'll dive into bullet points. So your bullet points are really where you get to tell your story. So hopefully through your formatting and through the way you've structured your resume, you're really catching that employer's attention within the 7 seconds. So then they get to start looking into your bullet points. And each bullet point should state what was your role, what did you accomplish in that role, and then what was the result or the purpose. And so these should really be, as much as possible, accomplishment statements. So we'll look at what that means. Let's look at a couple examples. So study the soil difference between 2 geographic regions versus discovered a fundamental soil difference between 2 geographic regions, allowing the American viticulture area to utilize this data for economic benefit. So trying to think if I have the polls feature. Don't know if I do. Which would you use?
The second one.
The latter.
The second one.
The second one. Awesome. Thank you for your responses. Normally I would ask why. Well, let's try it out. Why the second one?
The verb discovered is more in depth and studied, and it shows that you're helping an organization through your work as well.
Totally. Yeah. So discovered has a little bit more of that ownership, and then by including the American viticulture area, it shows that your work was actually fundamental in something an organization used. Awesome. Any other thoughts? Okay, I can only see like 4 of you, so I'm just going based on those 4 nonverbals. That's exactly it, right? That action verb is a lot stronger. You give me more detail, so I know more about what you did. Would anybody be hesitant to use the second one because of how long it is?
Yeah, I probably would.
I would be hesitant.
Yes, awesome. And that's totally valid, right? If you don't want to go into the viticulture area, if you're not actually that interested in soil science, right? I mean, hopefully you all are, but if you weren't interested in this particular project, maybe you're not going to elaborate this much. And so you can actually cut out some of the verbiage in this bullet point, but still make it an accomplishment statement, right? You can still say, discovered a fundamental soil difference between 2 geographic regions and end it there. And you're still capturing the value of that stronger action verb, but you're not taking up as much space if it's not adding as much value. If this is exactly what you want to be doing in a career, it's totally okay to take up this much space with a bullet point if it's incredibly aligned with what you want to do. Okay.
Krista, would you say that if you want to use an acronym, like instead of use American Viticulture Area, you use AVA, if that's well understood in sort of the area that you're applying to, can you just do that to shorten that without providing what the acronym means?
Yeah, typically if I see an acronym, I usually ask, would anybody in this field know what this acronym means? Mostly because I don't know most of the acronyms, but
right.
So that's usually the gauge I use. Like if you handed this to anybody in the field, would they understand it? And if the answer is yes, then I say that's totally fine. Like GIS. I know what that one means though. Okay. Next example, assisted biologists with various projects versus observed hundreds of nighttime wildlife crossing photos and recorded data on Excel to assist biologists with delineating legal wetland boundaries. Whew. Comments or thoughts on this one?
Number 2.
Number 2?
So based on
I'd
what
say,
you're...
Oh, you could go.
You go.
I'd say number 2, hundreds shouldn't it be spelled out?
Yeah, you can spell it out.
And
yeah.
I guess I think it's too long compared to the first one, even though the first one's a little vague. I think it still summarizes like what they're trying to say.
Okay. So you think number 1 is a good summary?
I don't think, honestly, I don't know. I don't think both of them are that strong, but I think I'd choose the first one over second, just because the second seems to like run on for a long time and kind has too much in it for one bullet point, I think.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Is someone else going to say something?
I was just gonna say, I mean, I like the second one, but definitely like if I was applying for a specific job and this was part of the job, I would put that in. But if it wasn't, I would probably make it more short and concise and not as broad as the first one. But yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. So kind of the same thought process as the first example, right? If it's going to be extremely relevant, then it's okay to have it be that long. But if you want to kind of condense it, you can absolutely condense it. The one thing I would say with this example is the word assisted doesn't add a lot of value to a resume. As an employer, I'm not going to assume that if you have assisted biologists, I'm not going to assume that you've recorded any data using Excel. I'm not going to assume that you've observed wildlife crossing photos. So keep in mind, what do you need the employer to know or want the employer to know, and make sure that you're communicating that clearly. And anytime I see assisted on a resume, I zone in on that and I ask the student, what did you do? And more often than not, you can start with a better action verb, even if it means not adding anything else to the rest of your bullet point. All right. So this is the part where I make you all practice writing a bullet point. Keep in mind, you don't need any periods. This is where you want to convey your transferable or your soft skills. In the skills section, or if you have a skills section, you want to keep that to technical field specific skills. And so if you want to demonstrate that you're a strong leader, or that you have good communication skills, or you're an effective problem solver, integrate all of those into your bullet points and tell me the story of that, because that's going to come across a lot stronger than just a bullet point that says like good problem solver. Use the job description, that column worksheet. Give me enough context to understand what was happening, but make sure that you're not giving me so much context that it becomes irrelevant. So kind of exactly like we just went over with the examples. And then up at the top, that action, verb, problem, project, result. That's a little formula I like to use as you're writing out bullet points. And then, let's see. So if you want, you can practice that now. Since I'm not walking around, I won't know if you're doing it or not. But I did also want to just draw your attention to the canvas. See if I can get there. Sweet. So on Canvas, there's a resume guideline workbook if you want to check that out. It has really good examples, and then on the second page is a list of action verbs, so that can be helpful in starting out your bullet points. And then there is also this resume review checklist, which can be really helpful as you're going through your own resume. It kind of just goes over a lot of what we talked about today, and is essentially what I would look for if you brought a resume in for an appointment or for a drop-in. So just wanted to point that out, that those are there and available to you. Questions or thoughts?
I have a thought.
Yes.
And that is, so as you're thinking about this, be careful of tense. And by tense, I mean like, is the thing that you're describing happening right now? So in the date, are you talking about, let's say you're doing it right now. So it's spring or maybe winter 2020 to the present. If it's an ongoing action, then you use the present tense for your action verbs and for those bullet points. If it's something that happened and you're not doing it anymore, so it's a experience or a job or whatever that is finished for now, then that's all past tense. And those are little things, but they're also important, right? Because everything that you do is presenting who you are, and are you paying attention to the details of presenting yourself in as best a light as possible? So you want to think about all of that as you put this together.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other thoughts?
When it comes to deciding like what skills and like what job information you want to put on, where do you like draw the line to put less in the job section or like experience section and less in the skills section, or more, and vice versa,
Yeah, really good question. And actually what I recommend is building out what I would call a master resume. And so building something out that's longer than a page and having all of your experience on there. And then for each job, create its own individual resume. And then from there, you can kind of use the job description to pick and choose like what's going to be most relevant. A question I usually ask students is, from this position, what do you want employers to know? And a lot of times there might be a bullet point, or maybe there's some detail in there that's not as pertinent for the employer to know. And so maybe you can cut out a bullet point from something, or you can combine a bullet point. The other thing you can do is look through, and if you have kind of the same skill demonstrated in a few different areas, maybe you pick the one where it was the most valuable, or you got like the most exposure to that skill. So a couple of different tricks to kind of go through and help decide, what do I want to include on this specific resume? The other thing I like to highlight usually is, a lot of times I hear, well, should I leave, my lifeguard position on there, or should I just take it off? And what I like to think of is like, is there another way, right? Is there a way where maybe you reduce a bullet point somewhere else, or maybe you leave lifeguarding on there because a lot of the skills from lifeguarding are kind of just inherent in the title lifeguard. And so maybe you can just list it, but you don't need a bullet point. So I guess just to encourage you not to think in black and white of, do I take this experience off or do I leave it on? Maybe there's a more creative way to fit some things on there.
Okay, sweet. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking. All right. Let me go through this really quick. Okay. So cover letters and then letters of recommendation, or a reference sheet. So cover letters are something that a lot of times either a job is going to ask for when you apply, or they're going to have an other documents section, and this is a really good place to upload a cover letter. It's just another chance to kind of tell the employer a little bit more about who you are. So your resume is going to be demonstrating, I'm qualified for this position. Your cover letter can demonstrate, I'm going to be a good fit for your team. And so how you can do that: start out with a nice header. You can use the same header that you have on your resume, and then that'll create kind of a nice package deal and make it look more professional. And then up on the left, you're going to start with the date and then the company's address and information. If you know who you can address the cover letter to, you can put their information up there.
I told them that they need to have the same header as the resume has.
Good, thank you. Usually make it sound like an option, but then I always say do it. Awesome. Okay. And then this first paragraph is one I get just a little bit excited about because it is so important to capture the employer's attention in this very first paragraph. And what I usually compare it to is all of the emails that you get from Cal Poly, right? Whether that's from President Armstrong or the Dean of Students or Dr. Appel, all of those emails, and think of the ones that you read from top to bottom. And most likely they're the ones that you know are specifically written for you, right? Can I get some head nods if you feel that? Okay, good. So consider an employer who has a ton of stuff to do, right? They have to get their job done, and they have to find a candidate for this open position. They're not going to read a cover letter from top to bottom if it feels generic in any way. So this first paragraph should really be dedicated to demonstrating to the employer that you know what this company does and you know what this position is about. And what you'll do is, A, you'll convince them that the next few paragraphs are worth reading, but then B, you'll make yourself stand out as a candidate because what you're doing is demonstrating to them that you've already done some research and you know what you're getting into. So the risk of you dropping out as a candidate or not accepting the position is much lower compared to any other candidate who doesn't know as much about the company or about the position. So I can't emphasize enough how important it is. 2 to 3 sentences just dedicated. What is it that you specifically like about the company? And then through that, you will still be telling them a little bit about yourself, right? If you appreciate that their core values are enhancing the quality of life, but another candidate appreciates the high-tech tests that they do, you're still 2 different candidates, but you're both demonstrating that you know something about the company. And then the last sentence in this paragraph should be essentially your thesis sentence and tell them kind of what are you going to talk about in the next paragraph or 2, which is going to be the why you paragraphs. And so this is where you get more personal with it. You can either do like your top 2 qualities that you want to talk more about. You can tell them a story that's going to highlight those qualities or might highlight something that's not clear on your resume. Or maybe you're just talking about some fundamental skills and your experiences with those. Questions about this section or about those top 2 sections?
Let's see.
All right, awesome. A little cheat here. If you are telling a story or if you want to talk about some top skills that can be used for multiple positions in the same industry, this part might not have to change that much, right? So your first paragraph will definitely change and will be very tailored, but you might be able to keep this why you section pretty similar. What I will say is if you do that, make sure quadruple check that there's nowhere in this section that you referred to one company that then you're going to leave that in there on accident to another company. So I usually say have like your template and then again, change it for every position and always start with your template. So you never accidentally have an old company left in there. Okay. And then the last section is just really you reiterating your interest in the position, thanking them for getting to the last paragraph, because if they got there, then that means the rest of your letter was really well written, so good job. And then sign, closing sign. Some programs allow you to actually do a signature now, like on your trackpad. You can also take a picture and upload it or take a clipping from a previous signature. I would recommend that before doing like a font that looks like a signature. And I would almost say if you can't do a handwritten signature, you don't need to include a font signature. You can just say sincerely and then type in your name. Cool.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
So I think the third sentence says, please contact me with any additional questions with the phone number there.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of always look at that like that is obvious, kind of, I guess, and that phone number is already at the top of the page,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what do you think about that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great point. I would probably say you don't need to include that sentence unless you know that you're not going to be reached by email, or if you have like a preferred contact method, and you would prefer that they call you, you can include that. But otherwise, you're totally right. It's redundant and you don't need it in there.
And a lot of times too, on cover letters, when I look at them from the work that students have done, and tell me if this is good or bad or doesn't matter. I usually suggest that the student say, please find my resume attached. I plan to follow up with you in the next week or two to find out more about the position. Is that too forward? Is that appropriate?
I would absolutely say that was appropriate. Yeah. I would say particularly if you have a contact that you can follow up with, and then definitely do it.
Mm-hmm.
Follow up.
Because and this is just a point to all of you, is that people, and Krista mentioned this, people are very busy, and they are, if they're having a job out there, they're going to be looking at a lot of resumes and a lot of different people, and it makes a difference for the people that are persistent, and it can be the difference between getting a job or not getting a job. So I'll give you two examples real quick. So one of the students in our department is applying to graduate school, and so he and I spoke about his cover letter and the application that he was putting together. And so he applied, sent an email out to a professor that he wanted to work with, and didn't hear anything back. And I told him, send him another email. And so he did, and he still didn't hear anything back for another week. And I said, send him another email. And he did it, and it took 4 times, but then the faculty member responded to him and said, thank you so much for reaching out. I've received your emails, and I'm very interested in you as a candidate. So that's one example. Another example is one of our office assistants was looking for an internship with NASA, and the same thing happened. She had to reach out 4 or 5 times before she heard anything back. So if people aren't responding to you, don't take it as a no. Take it as a maybe, right? And it could go your way if you persist. So I encourage you to just keep going after it if it's a job that you want, because it does make a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. I usually like to say, if it's a no, they'll tell you no. So wait for the no. But hopefully you never get it. Yes, be persistent. Follow up. You can also use platforms like LinkedIn to connect with people that work at that company, even if it's not the hiring manager. And just ask them for tips, ask them how they've enjoyed it. If there's any alumni working at the company, definitely connect with them, reach out, do whatever you can to kind of get your name off of that piece of paper, whether that's in an inbox or you're connecting with somebody at the company. Awesome. Okay, reference sheet. I don't have another slide for that. Really, the biggest thing I like to say is make sure anybody who's on your reference sheet knows that they're on your reference sheet before you submit it to an employer. And what you can do that's super helpful if you're asking someone to serve as a reference or asking for a letter of recommendation, email the person you'd like to ask them first if they're willing, and then describe why you're asking them, and feel free to be as specific as possible. Say, the job is asking for this, and in your class winter quarter, we did this project. I would love if you could talk about these key things. And it feels a little presumptuous sometimes, but really what you're doing is making the recommender's job so much easier. So keep that all in mind. Okay. And then just some other resources. I will be back next week, right?
Yeah.
Week? All right. I'll be back next week to talk more about interviewing, but know that our office is still completely open virtually. So we have virtual drop-ins with hours extended. So now we have morning drop-ins 9 to 11, and then afternoon 1 to 3. And you can just access those via the Career Services website. If you want anybody to just look over your resume or a cover letter or like a 15-minute question, go to that resource. And then anything you wanted to talk about more in depth, you can always make a virtual appointment with me. And then as Dr. Appel mentioned in the beginning, most of the resources posted on Canvas are online. And so take a look at our website. That student resource toolkit is where all of these resources live, and have just endless resources for you there. And we are still doing virtual workshops and events. So check out the calendar. It'll tell you if it's like a live virtual webinar. So plan to attend any of those. One that I know is coming up that's actually not on the calendar yet is a sustainability networking panel that will be on April 23rd, I believe. So if you're interested in that, tune in. All right.
Are you good?
I think that's it from me.
Okay. So students, do you have any questions?
I have a quick question. What's the best way during this time to follow up with someone? Like, since it's so uncertain, like I had something before all of this happened, and I just don't know what the best way to reach out to someone without being insensitive is.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it's something that even I'm still kind of navigating and trying to figure out how to educate students with that. What I would say right now is just acknowledge what's going on and acknowledge that, what their life might be like. So even if it's just starting the email with, I know things might be hectic right now, or, I understand that times aren't really normal right now. Just kind of acknowledging that in the beginning and then going in to whatever your message is. I think for now, that's what I'm saying is kind of a good way to approach it.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
Liam, you had a question too, right?
No, I did not.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. For like references, if you have asked them like twice before, can you assume like you can keep using them, or should you ask them like every time that you like put them down that you're like doing it, just like letting them know?
Good question. I would say it kind of depends on the time frame. If you're going to be applying to a lot of positions like in the next month or two, I would reach out and just say, hey, I'm applying to a few different positions. Would you mind serving as a reference, for this upcoming job search? And then you can kind of get the okay to put them down on multiple. And then if you kind of make it through that interview process, you can go back and give them a heads up and let them know, this is a position that might be calling you for a reference. And so kind of giving them those 2 points of contact.
Okay.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So say your resume was like just over 1 page and you wanted to fit it on 1 page, and you had things like volunteer experience, work experience, education, stuff like that. What would be the first thing you would cut out in order to like make sure it's 1 page? Like the least important thing on your resume.
I would say it depends on the job you're applying to and your experience. And then I would almost ask you what you feel like is the least relevant thing, because volunteer experience can be more valuable than paid experience sometimes. So it just kind of depends on what the experience is and how it aligns with your position. What I would do before taking anything off completely is, again, kind of going through and seeing, like, do you restate a skill or something? Like, is there any ways to condense anything in the rest of your resume first?
Okay.
Anything else, folks? I'll just say this last bit. So we didn't get to talk about the primary peer-reviewed research article today, but we will next time. But here's what I'd like you to think about as you kind of move into next week, is the primary peer-reviewed research article should be one that you would feel comfortable presenting a summary of to the class. In some ways, like you were one of the authors of the paper. So it should be something that fits the description of being primary and peer-reviewed, but also one that is sort of at a level that's appropriate enough for you to understand and for you to be able to present the most interesting aspects of it to the class as essentially like a author. Okay, so think about that. If the one that you picked doesn't fit that, then just find another one, and we will talk about that in more detail next week. Okay, it was great to see you all, and I'll see you, and so will Krista, next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.